All right. Yeah. So thanks, Rev. So thanks for sitting down today. I know you're a busy guy, and I was excited to get the opportunity to talk with you. I just feel like, in the past when we've talked and met up, that just kind of have a natural flow and a click.
Right, right, yeah.
So it was exciting to be able to, to do one of these first ones with you, just because I know I could sit down and rap with you and talk about some stuff, and also like a lot of the things through our conversations I learned about you and your background and your history. I identify with a lot of that. Plus, you're just a good dude. You know what I mean?
Appreciate that. Appreciate that.
And we're catching what I think is the come up, like right about the point before Rev like really starts to take off. I mean,
Yeah.
he's already successful, no doubt. He's someone that I look to and see what he's done and his growth is. But anyway, so I'm giving a little preview there of my feelings, but I want to have you step in and kind of talk to us a little bit about your background, your history, how you got to this point in time. Um, what maybe we'll go into the next steps and what you're currently working on. But I think it'd be nice for people to know like where what you came from, what you've done most recently, and how you even got to this point today.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for wanting to sit down and chat with me, and I think it's really special to be able to connect with individuals like yourself to build a relationship, and then also start different journeys. Right, this is a new journey for you, and what you're doing, and I think it's brave for people to step out of their comfort zone to create things that they might be passionate about, or they might not even understand if they have a passion for. Right. So yeah, so I appreciate that, man, for real.
Yeah, it's always like what's the saying? Like becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the smartest. It's the smartest thing. If you can really do that, I think that's what actually gets you where you want to go.
Yeah. So, like, if we're putting together a comic book and you want to give people the short version of the Rev origin story, how he became a superhero,
Wow.
what's that look like?
Wow, that's pretty incredible, man. I've never really been asked a question like that before, but I speak in the superhero terms a lot. Um, but I mean, for me, man, I think it's just this little kid growing up with kind of uh, no direction, right? Growing up in the very very country, part of the state in North Carolina, the dirt roads. In the middle of a 15-mile dirt road in my grandmom's, slave house, if you will. Had no bathrooms. We had a well. We got our water from outhouse. I mean, very, very intense living. A lot of us run around all the time with no shoes on. Um, kind of fend for ourselves as we were growing up. So I mean, just kind of give you that perspective, and then you add other innuendos in there, like violence and drugs and such. And how do you get out of that type of environment when that's all you know, and you don't know about politics, you don't know about money and how to use money, and you don't know how to form your words, so I feel like to be able to get out of that world is just like what caused this little kid, this little African American kid, to come out of a place that's designed to keep him there, right? But I think it was the individuals that actually guided me, that were in that world, that I looked up to, the gangsters, if you will, right? They always told me that I didn't want to be like them.
Hmm.
Don't be like us. You don't want to be like us. And I always had a vision of just kind of being better, wanting better. So I left and started my journey. You know.
It's funny you say don't be like us. I feel like now that you say that, it resonates with me because a lot of the things that I when I'm shooting these videos for messages for my younger self, it's effectively saying like, don't make the mistakes that I did,
Right. Mhm.
and so that's impressive too that they identified with that and they wanted better for you. That's a lot of my goal, and even the goal with this is to get information out there so that hopefully the younger version of Rev or the younger version of Eric sees this stuff and can make the better decisions, and or at least can be armed with the best information to do so. So talk to me a little bit about the impact that had. Is there anyone in particular that stands out to you, or even if you don't want to give names, like
Mhm.
the characteristics, the traits
Yeah.
that they had?
First, my mom. My mom was she. She grew up with me. She had me when she was 15 years old.
Mm.
And if you think about that, that's pretty intense. You know, and she was a praying mom. I grew up in church, Pentecostal, and all I knew is church and trying to survive. That's really it. And trying to build that faith system, create that relationship with God, so it can take me through life. So, my mom is the reason that I've been able to, accumulate that relationship with God in the most real way, to be able to understand that, hey, it's not truly about the religion. It's about the relationship with Christ, and that, having that faith system that can carry you through life, because, it's extremely challenging out here, and it's easy to give up and take your life and have it all over. And that's just the reality of it. And if you don't have a faith system, it's very hard to, you know, carry yourself. Right. And then, it was those gangsters as well, those guys that I hung around day in and day out, that my mom was very nervous about me being around.
Mm.
And, just watching them move and seeing them doing some of the things that they did. And I knew that that's not something that I wanted to do growing up. And having the respect for them, to listen to them, because they would, take care of us when we were with them.
Mm.
They take us to the store and buy us stuff and tell us stories, and protect us and make sure we were good, and let us use their cars to drive around when we weren't even supposed to. So, I mean, it was those little things that, helped me create, this whole vision of what I wanted and what I thought I wanted my life to be.
Okay. That's interesting. What do you like for someone? You talked about faith. You know, I didn't grow up in an area. Well, I did grow up in an area where people were very active. In different churches. My family was no longer. And I'm someone who started to get an idea of just faith and uh, this notion, this idea that there's something more to all of this, and
Mm-hmm.
there's something that connects us. And that just kind of happened to me from really studying science and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, all right, now that I start understanding a little bit about cellular biology and things of that nature, it's actually pushed me more towards faith. And I was like, understanding these things, the more we gain knowledge of it, the more it seems like there's some kind of connectiveness to here and how things work together. Um, but so, what would you say for someone who doesn't have that background, doesn't have that influence, right? And you talked about how important it is. But where do they get that from? How do they find those resources?
Incredible question. And everything is about experience. You know, everything is emotional driven, and if you can't connect to something, you can't. There's nothing you can get from it. You can't get any experience from something you can't connect from, right? So, for a person that doesn't even understand anything about a faith system, I think it's just really understanding themselves,
Mm.
right? I mean, if you don't have faith in yourself, or you don't believe in yourself, that's where it starts, right? If you don't have faith, or faith in yourself, or belief in yourself, because if you don't know what faith is, then the next word is belief, right? So if you don't believe in yourself, then how do you get yourself to the next level? How do you push yourself? And you can't really push yourself if you don't go through those obstacles in life that demand you to be better for you. And I say that because growing up, man, like I didn't have my self-worth. I didn't know what my self-worth was, because I just always felt like I was less than, because I didn't have anything. Everybody had more than me, when it comes to materialistic stuff, when it comes to, their houses, cars, clothes. We were always given things, and I always felt like I was less than. And I didn't really get to really understanding who I was as a human being, and as a man, as a father, as a son, as a brother, um, until my early 40s. And I'm only 42. So, it's really deep for me, because I spent my whole life, trying to really understand my worth, and that took me down a long road of self discovery.
Hmm.
So, without believing in myself, you know, I don't even know where I would be if I didn't believe that I could make it to through that next obstacle over and over and over again.
I think that's maybe why we resonate so well, is that I also see a lot of that in you and a lot of the things that I aspire or I want to aspire for myself. So, but I'm still in that phase too. You talk about that you just achieved it. I'm still trying to make that happen. There's people out there that are still trying to make that happen. So, what was it that made it click for you? And
Mm.
I've done a lot of things. I've done a
Right,
lot of things,
right,
and
yeah.
still and been successful with a lot of them and
Mhm.
received a lot of awards and stuff. And
Yeah,
still,
yeah.
it's hard for me to use that to build up this notion that you're talking about and where you're sitting.
Right, yeah.
So, what was the thing that clicked for you? What happened? Was it like a light switch or just a casual thing? Or
Um, you know, this is great. This is great. This conversation is incredible because it's allowing me to really go deep to help you understand exactly how I did it. And if I did it the wrong way, then I wouldn't be able to bring it how I'm about to bring it. But as I said, I grew up under my mom, so I handled things very differently because I had motherly love. I maybe didn't have everything, the materialistic things, and what everybody else had. But one thing that I absolutely had was the love for my mother. That love helped me, through these journeys of meeting and connecting to these different individuals that I was connecting with that would teach me different things. So I basically put myself together from other people. And in that, on the road of relationships, that's where I kind of fell to disaster. I found myself consistently, trying to prove myself to women, because I was like a lover boy, if you will. And it all started in like 97, 96 when Tupac was around. Well, it was like the gangster era. So the girls wanted the bad boys, right? And they didn't want a lover boy. They didn't want a good boy. They wanted a boy that would, take them on the ride of the highs and lows, right?
okay.
So, going through that and girls that you truly like and they telling you that you're too nice and it takes you on a mental spin. It takes you through a lot of heartache because you don't understand the boundaries of yourself, of your self-worth, and understanding that you aren't like the other dudes. I wasn't a dude that wanted to play games with girls. I didn't want to, if I liked you, I liked you,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, dudes, they like, they want to try to play games with girls and this girl, that girl, and this girl. So coming up in that relationship world, trying to, find that woman that was for me, I fell to a lot of heartbreak because I didn't understand, I didn't truly understand when to step away because my mom was a fighter. So I fought all the time for my
To maintain
relationships,
those relationships.
all the time. And sometimes they just, I would step out too late and I'd be crushed and I'd had to build myself up over and over again. And I did this my whole relationship life. And it was my last relationship, that I really honed in to understand my self-worth as a man, because I always wanted a family.
Okay.
And, my last relationship allowed me to have a family. And when you have a family, you have to understand, can I hold this family? Can I be the man that I need to be for this family? Can I be a father to the kids that are not mine? Can I be, a boyfriend and a potential husband to this woman, and can I be, committed to myself to give anything and everything that I can to this family, as well as keep my eyes on my son to make sure that my personal son that is good in this too. So, on that journey, I found that I was growing a lot from this woman who still had a long way to go, and you know, all I could do was try my best to help this individual, and because we had a different relationship, like not only was this a person I loved, this was a person that I knew for a very long time,
Hmm.
but then I stepped into that romantic era to understand, like, whoa, who is this person? Like, I don't even know who this person is. Like, so I went through a lot of self discovery with myself in that relationship, and checking a lot of boxes off for myself to understand that I am a prize, especially these days. You don't have people that will really stand up for themselves and try to grow and be better for their other half. And that's something that I consistently did, try to be better and try to understand my tone. If, she says, hey, why are you yelling? It's like, well, I'm not yelling. I'm just passionate. I'm talking in passion. So really understanding like, hey, you have to learn how to communicate to this individual so that there's no resistance. So that when you do say something, then it's like, why are you yelling? You can't say, why are you yelling now? Because now I'm really watching my tone. I'm really, making sure that you understand that I'm trying to grow from these differences that we have in this relationship. So it was the biggest and hardest relationship I've ever been in my life, but it was the most growth I have ever had in anything in my life. And it landed me to where I am right now, to how I deal with people, how I deal with my son, how I deal with other females that I might be interested in, and I might want to take out, or understanding how they talk,
Hmm.
understanding what they can provide for me in my life. Like, can you be fine? Are you financially stable? Can you support me? Can I support you? And those are the things that I have to ask now. I cannot play games. I can't say, well, maybe she has the potential.
Hmm.
Potential will get you hurt, especially for a person that's a hustler. Like, I had to go through a lot to get where I'm at in life. So that's a lonely road to get there.
So there's this old adage that says like, um, steel sharpens steel,
Mhm.
and I think that's maybe a little bit. It kind of feels like to me like what you're touching on is that I've been in relationships before where I felt like I can help carve this person into something else, and so
Yeah.
I'm so used to coaching and working with people
Right.
that I have a tendency to take on those relationships. And
Mhm.
so now I was most recently in one similar, and I stopped it, and just kind of stopped it cold.
Mhm.
And it didn't go over that well, but I realized it was the exact same pattern.
Right. Right.
And now I'd almost rather just wait until I come across someone or something that works out. So uh, I guess what I'm getting at is that adage of steel sharpens steel, right? So are you looking for more of a partner than that has that hustler mentality, that has the self reliance? What are the things
Great
that you're
question.
looking for?
Great question. I'm just looking for somebody who want to grow.
Hmm.
That's it. You don't have to have anything. If you want to grow, is a different passion that lives inside of that, right? A person that wants to grow is not worried about the outside world. They're worried about themselves, making themselves better, so that they can be a better for everyone around them. So for me, I want that person that's not worried about the glitz and the glamour of life.
Hmm.
I want the person that's worried about life itself,
Hmm.
impacting life and leaving this earth and leaving a legacy, and because that's a different type of human being. That's the 1%, like billionaires, right? So
Hmm.
for me, she doesn't need to be a hustler. She don't need to hustle just as much as me. We'll never really get anywhere. We both working as hard as I'm working. But if she's willing to grow and always up to the challenge of making herself better for her and then everyone around her, I think that's where I'd love to land.
So you're at this stage too where your business is taking off. You're making more and more contacts, and then you had mentioned family and how important it sounds like a family unit is to you, like that security. For me, it's huge. I look at other couples that have a secure family, and I look at them enviously.
Mm,
When you have someone else that you can rely on, and you have your children with you, or however your family dynamic
mm,
is,
mm,
regardless of how it's made up, I do look on that with envy. So when that happens, though, and you're a hustler and you're spending this time and you're trying to get stuff done, something's got to give, or things balance out, right?
yeah.
So where what's the best way to say it? So how have you figured out how to allocate your time to ensure that you're doing kind of best of both
Right.
and giving all of yourself
Mm-hmm.
to your family
Mm-hmm.
while still being able to continue to develop, to grow, and to build the Posh brand?
Well, that was a tough situation. When I first got into the previous relationship I was in, she wanted me home every night, for dinner with the kids, and so that was a bit of a challenge for me in the beginning. Um, but I knew that I had to meet in the middle of the road of that, right? Because it's like, well, dude, you wanted a family. You can't hustle all the time if you want a family. Like, if you want to keep this lady, you gotta be able to give her something. So I started adjusting and making sure that I could be home for the kids and have dinner with them and sit at the table and be present with them and ask them about their day in school and such. Um when I didn't have time, um I'm sorry, when I had time off, I literally was always doing stuff with the kids. Always. One, because I just loved it, and two, it was fun. Like it brought that kid back in me,
Mm.
and that's what I was hustling for. I was hustling to be able to do things with them that were cool, that they would remember, and it was really great. So I knew that when I woke up, in the mornings, I needed to have my time, once they were off to school, and then once I have my hour to myself, it's time to get to it until it's time to go home, you know. So I think it's just really understanding how to balance your time for yourself, because if you don't do that, you'll crash and burn. 'Cause I used to get sick a lot when I first started my
Mm.
business in my first 3 years, all the time, because I was running myself in the ground. And I started exercising. I started having coffee in the morning for an hour. I started just kind of hanging out outside sometimes, and
Mm.
as far as like literally just kind of enjoying nature,
Yeah.
at bits in the day. So and a mentor actually, told me about that. It's like, hey, just go leave the office, go, just take your time, take your hour to yourself, and then get back to work. Even if you're having your coffee and you're just looking at your day, seeing how your day is going to be.
Yeah.
So I've been able to create routines for myself to be able to give to my family. Take my son on motorcycle rides, make sure I'm going to his soccer games, especially the ones that were very important to him. If he called me about it, I know I needed to be there.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So just really, talking to him and asking him, hey, what can I do better? What can I do for you? And he said, what, last year before last, he was like, I just want to spend more time with you, Dad. Enough. Okay. Because at that point, nothing matters. Once you tell me that, like,
Yeah.
so it's been a journey. It's been a challenge. But it's been great because, I think, from the things that happen around you, it helps you understand if you're cultivating that time
Mm.
management right.
Okay. You mentioned present and being present when you're there and around your family. I think a lot of people talk about that, or you hear stuff where people will talk about being present, but what does it actually mean? Like for those younger people out there, those people who need help with that, what is being present?
I think being present is truly focusing, like hyper focusing in on your moment. For instance, right now, like being present, like not thinking about anything else. Literally, it's you and I here having this conversation. When I'm at the dinner table with the kids, it's literally talking to them about their day. If the lady and I was on the couch at night before bed, it's literally talking to her, having a moment, having deep conversation with her. And then when it was with myself, if I'm out in the nature, it's just really just feeling the air, on my body, looking at the sun, looking at the trees, looking at the ants crawl around, like, because once you can focus on things, it allows you to be there. You don't
Yeah.
think about anything else. And I've had to learn that as a military veteran. I went through classes to really, when you're driving, listen to the tires on the road. Like, that's deep. Like, when you're taking a shower, feel the water fall on your body. Like, that is insane. And if you really can truly every single day focus on those little things, like, okay, when I wake up in the morning, I just want to listen to everything. I want to listen to the birds. I want to listen to the creaks in the house. When I stand up, I want to feel my feet touch the ground.
Mm.
I want to think about how it's going to feel to brush my teeth. Because it just keeps you focused. It keeps you in a very different state of mind to truly be present. and that's the essence of present for me, being present.
But yeah, it's incredible to think about, right?
Yeah, when you really think about it like that, it's crazy.
One experience I had, I was on an airplane, and the kind of the low hum of the engines
Mm.
I got zoned into. And I wasn't at this point, I definitely wasn't big on a lot of the stuff that I am now, like as far as doing binaural beats or trying to do some
Mm.
meditations and things
Right.
like that. So I hadn't played with any of that,
Mm.
right? But I said to myself, okay, well, I know like you're supposed to sit kind of nice and have a good posture, and there's something about like touching your fingers. So I was like, oh, I'll touch my thumb and my ring finger together. I chose those, and I was just listening to the engines on the plane and started to deep breathe, and all of a sudden I had like a wild trip. About 5-10 minutes into this thing, I'm flashed back to my bedroom when I was a child and stuff like that.
Wow, wow.
And so it was just wild to me,
Mm.
what the mind can do,
Right.
you know? Yeah. So being present. That's why it's always interesting to hear someone share and talk about those strategies. You had touched on just briefly, kind of discussed about having served in a military career. What things did you learn from there? Because that's definitely very structured, right? That's the whole idea, is to put someone in there who is going to follow directions and know enough to get the job done,
Mm.
right? So it's probably a little bit different than being an entrepreneur and the things you're doing now. So what are some of the skill sets that you learned or experiences that you have from that may have helped you now, or what things did you have to like potentially even unlearn?
Well, the first thing I learned is that you have to be broken in order to be fixed. Be broken meaning go to boot camp, take everything from you, be in your face, yelling, screaming. One person get in trouble, everybody get in trouble. Doing exercises, getting up super early in the morning. Boot camp broke me. It broke me from the regular nuances of life, and then it built me back up when we graduated boot camp to say, wow, I went through all of that and it got me here. Like this is now my mom is here crying and she's so excited and I have this money in the bank account and I've never seen this much money. And that wasn't a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but coming from where I come from, it was a big accomplishment, and then going out on, my duties, going out to my duty stations, it taught me, discipline. You had to have discipline, because once you left boot camp, you have to do what you need to do or you're going to get in like real trouble, you
Yeah,
know?
and how old are you at this point?
Um, at this point, I was 19, 18, 18.
So
I went in two
that's a lot
weeks.
of responsibility, right? To
Yeah.
go from being able to just run around with your friends, all of a sudden, like, significant situations
Yeah.
depend on you doing your job.
I actually, I actually went to jail, before I went in the military,
Okay.
um, doing some stupid stuff with my cousin. And, we went to jail and my mom made me walk home from the jailhouse. And, on that walk home, I was like, this is not going to be my life. This is not going to be my life. And this was a little bit before I got out of school. And that's when I decided that I wanted to really get away and go in the military because I did have a manager that lived a way better life than me. And I found that her husband, in a very short story, I found that her husband was in the military. So I was like, that's my scapegoat. So 2 weeks out of high school, I went right in the military. So I was a very, very, very young kid, young minded kid who had to grow up in the military and learn everything, So, to have that discipline and commitment and, just that pride to fight for your country, defend your country. I think that drive just kind of takes you anywhere. You know?
Huge. Yeah. So, a big part of, you know, uh, man, I got to work on saying. So, a big part of what we want to work on, or at least who we want to identify with, is a single dad crowd. Because from my experiences, and almost every time I talk to a single dad,
Mm.
there always comes up, you start off tentative in the conversation and you're talking about your stuff because we've talked about this before just briefly, but I'd like to go back into it. That's why I bring this up, is that you are supposed to be competitive against other males, right? You compete for mates, you compete for financial success, you compete for land, you compete for resources, and then your whole world falls apart. You put this family unit together, and the world falls apart for you. And most oftentimes, females have a group, because a lot of times with females, and even things that we see kind of in nature, it's like the female group runs the pride, and then there's like a small section of male amongst this larger female group. And I think that what I'm getting at is that they naturally seem to have a support system when these events occur, right? When there's this dissolution of or dissolving of the family unit,
Mm-hmm.
and then the male is expected to soldier on. They'll talk to their buddies and be like, "You'll be all right, bro," and that's usually the most they get. So I think it's good to give perspective and experience, because when I talk to single dads, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of them say, man, if I had only known this at the time, I wouldn't have done X, Y, and Z. Or if I had only had this conversation, I would have done X, Y, and Z. So uh, let's just start off with that premise in mind and kind of talk about going through the experience and what things you've learned, being a father, but not necessarily having the family dynamic. And then your instance, like you talked about recently, you're trying to rebuild one of those, and what occurs with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, being a father is an absolute incredible thing. I think it can either, put you in a different space in life, or, it could really like tear some things up. And when I say tear some things up, I mean, you really have to decide as a father whether you want to step up to the plate to be this man, to this human that you brought into this world that didn't ask to be here. Um, or
That's a
you,
hell of a way to put it.
yeah, yeah.
But you're right.
That's the reality of it,
Yeah.
And I have a lot of like kind of, I guess I say pain, from my childhood, because I didn't have my dad around. I stayed with him when I was small, and mostly it was staying with my stepmom because he was always at work. Only time I would really see him is, sometimes he would come home and eat, or he'd just come home to beat us because we were so bad. So other than that, by the time I was, you know, 7 or 8, there was no more really seeing my dad. Like, he could live really right in the same neighborhood as me and still never saw him.
Wow.
So when I became a father, I went through a lot of emotion, like a lot of emotion, because I didn't understand how my father could not have the love for me that I have for my son. And I'm like, well, he has to be a monster in order to not love me. But he's not a monster because he has so many other kids and he treats them right. But why doesn't he treat me?
I can walk away from it.
Yeah, like why doesn't he treat me the same?
Yeah.
So and that's something that I never wanted my son to go through. And I never wanted to try to raise my son like my mom raised me or what I thought. I wanted to raise him with real love, like true love. And I think for fathers who's like a new father, who's coming in the world of all these worries and all this emotion, I think it's just really understanding, like, you have to understand what real love is. If you don't understand that, you're done. My dad didn't understand what real love was. Back in their day, I mean, shucks, he was 10 years older than my mom, and she had me when she was 15. Like, that's deep, right? So, I don't know what his background is. I don't even know his favorite color. So I had to decide, to take on the role as a father and figure it out as I go, and not beat myself up for not knowing the things that I might supposed to know, or not being there all the time as his mom might think I need to be there, because I mean, there has been times where I say, hey, listen, I'm just, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm being a dad here. Like, give me a break. Just because you grew up in this world of a perfect family, to say, right, doesn't mean that I'm supposed to be how you think a dad's supposed to be, right? And I think it's just really, you know, educating yourself on, what love is, and understanding if you can obtain that, because that's really what's going to help you raise your child.
So, do you think having like who did you emulate as far as that, or pick up anytime you do something,
Mhm.
you say to yourself, uh, like a kid wants to play basketball like
Mhm.
Jordan or hit a home run like Canseco,
Mhm.
they emulate,
Mhm.
right, and learn that pathway of success.
Mhm.
So, if you didn't have as much exposure to your father, was there anyone that you emulated or anyone that you saw the characteristics of this idea of a provider, not necessarily a father, but maybe just like a parent type figure that you emulated or that you used and saw them be successful?
Yeah, my step granddad, without a thought, um, Carl McCoy Sr. Like he was my step granddad, and he treated me like I was his real son. Like
Mm.
he taught me how to use a hammer, and I built a gazebo with him for the first time. And he would like let me drive his cars, and like he truly spent father time with this little, 6, 7 year old kid from the country,
Mm.
you know, that wasn't even his. And, he gave me a love that I never knew could exist. And I found out that it could exist when he passed away. When he passed away, I was out to sea, and I never got to tell him goodbye. And for
Wow.
me, like, that crushed me to this day, like, legit. Like, and that was 2003, you
Yeah.
know. But we just had this connection that was just so different, and so deep that I even had a dream about him. Some years later, no, a couple years later, when he passed away, that he was talking to me. And that's just a little bit more private, but it was insane. It was absolutely crazy, but I needed that because I needed that closure
Mm.
as a 20-something-year-old that lost this man that I was so deeply connected to, and I didn't even get to say goodbye to him before he left. You feel me? So he was the one that definitely. I mean, his son, my stepdad, Carl McCoy Jr. He was in my life, and he loved me like his child, but I didn't get that true essence of a father figure from him. You know, um, and before he passed away, I got to say goodbye, and I really didn't realize what I'm about to say until just now. I was able to say goodbye to him, and he told me before he passed, he was like, "Hey, you're my son," and my sister has a video of me truly breaking down right in the hospital
Mm.
with him a few years ago,
Yeah.
5 years ago. Because to hear him say that, like, it was like, that was just, it's like I needed it. It was
Yeah.
like my soul fiend that. And
I think he needed it too, huh?
yeah, I think he needed it too. And I cried like a baby. Like, it was the craziest emotional experience I've ever had. So yeah, man. Yeah.
Um, that's tough to follow up after, It's got me sitting here. I'm like, damn.
Me too. I'm like, damn.
Um, so the big thing is what I was talking about earlier too. Is in particular is the challenges, right, in the
Mhm.
network systems, the
Yeah.
support systems. Have you found any any support systems or things that have helped you in that regard?
Um, to what again?
Like as far as specifically parenting, trying to build this family, like for instance, you identify with that previous relationship that you wanted to have a family unit and you started to try and make these changes. Like
Mhm.
it was
Right.
almost like you blossomed,
Mhm.
and you said it was because of that. But did you take advantage or find some resources to help you? Again, my thing is to look to see to is there a community, is there resources, what things can we point people to better themselves, to improve themselves, and become better fathers, better leaders, better entrepreneurs, right?
Um, you gotta want it. There's no road to being this great idea of a human being. Like, there's no journey. There's no instructions.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot of noise out in the world. growing up as a man, we're taught to rah rah, we're tough. We gotta, be tough in front of our boys with our girl, and and we lose the essence of human being. Like humans are sensitive, they're emotional. We need to go through every emotion. If you block out an emotion, you miss the cycle of going through true emotion, and you miss the cycle of growth.
Hmm.
So it's truly no like it's no instructions. Like you gotta have the passion for life to want to be a better human being. And if you do that, you will stand up to yourself to be a better self. Now,
Well, you said you'll stand up to yourself to be a better self.
right. That's deep.
Yeah.
I was gonna say now, what assisted me to getting there, to that higher being in myself? Plant medicine.
Hmm.
My ex was someone that introduced me into that world, and I was very skeptical because I grew
Yeah.
up in Pentecostal, and trust me, Pentecostal's different. It's different. So I was very skeptical on going into that world. So I did a lot of research on plant medicine just to make sure, a person that really, really, really stuck out to me was I hope I'm saying her last name right, Chelsea Handler.
Okay.
Is that okay? That's correct, Chelsea Handler. She went through a plant medicine session, and I kind of got to see, I think it was on Netflix or Prime Video or something like that. And to be able to see her go through that with these people that she went through, I was like, okay, this is real. Like, I want to try. And excuse me, going through plant medicine, man, it is a journey that is absolutely unmatched. However, you have to be mentally prepared. You have to be a mentally sound individual. Some administrators don't even take you on if they feel like you don't have the mental capacity to go through plant medicine.
Hmm.
So that actually helped me kind of connect back to Revis Jordan. For years I was Rev, I was Mr. Posh, I was, all these cool little innuendo names, but plant medicine truly it brought me back to myself. Like you are Revis, you're not Rev, you're not Mr. Posh, you're Revis Jordan. And even to now, since I've taken plant medicine, and people will notice, like I say my name is Revis first, and then I say call me Rev or
Okay.
Posh. I used to say, oh yeah, I'm Rev, or yeah, I'm Posh, or I'm Rev, but now I'm like, no, I'm Revis Jordan first, and then I'm these other individuals.
So you keep saying like brought you back to yourself. Um, do you are you really referring to that you became comfortable being yourself instead of having to be a personality? Or what do you mean by it came back to yourself?
Well, I forgot who I was. I forgot like I was losing my faith. Like I was losing my relationship with God. I was so in the world. I was so like in this world trying to like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this, to where I was losing Revis Jordan. Like I was Rev, I was Mr. Posh, I was these aliases. I
Hmm.
wasn't me.
Okay.
Therefore, I wasn't truly growing. I wasn't truly growing because I was so trying to do what people were telling me that I needed to do. Like, hey, you need to do this. Oh, you need to wear these clothes. You need to dress this way. You're being too urban. Don't be too urban in this city, in this
Yeah.
community. That's too black for them. Like,
So you were
and
making shells.
right. I
Like,
was I was starting to put myself, I was putting myself into cocoons.
okay.
Like mini, like a whole big, like a dirt dabbler. Have you ever heard of that?
Okay.
Do you know what
What's
that
it?
is?
No.
So dirt dabbler is a type of wasp
Okay.
that builds these clay mounds, like these clay houses,
Okay.
and they're very thick. If you Google dirt dabbler, it's pretty
Okay.
crazy. I'm a country boy. So dirt dabbler, they build these clay houses. They're really thick. So I was just putting these clay on me over and over, and I was inside, and it was like this big, whole clay around me,
Yeah.
and I had to break myself out of that clay to say, oh man, this is what it feels like to be Revis.
Okay.
Like, wow, like I've reached, not the highest level, because you will never reach the highest level of yourself because you're always going to have to grow.
Yeah.
But I've never in my life been so comfortable and content with myself till now, like literally. And
Well, I'll tell you what, you could see it from knowing you for as long as I have and interacting with you. Um, I can see it not only in your posture, like the way you carry yourself
mm,
and the way you make eye contact
mm,
and stuff like that, um, but also just when you're speaking and like the belief. It's like you're speaking with a belief that's
mm,
infectious.
wow,
Uh, Whereas before, we've known each other for quite some time. There
yeah,
was some other stuff. There was some rough periods and stuff for you that you
mm,
went through
yeah,
that I was witness to or that I'd
mm,
seen.
mm,
And so that's why sitting down with you was like such a key thing for me. I was so excited about it, because I've just watched you mature and watch, not even mature, but just watch you transform,
mm,
right?
right,
Watch you dig yourself out of this
yeah,
clay.
right,
So
right.
it's impressive. Um, so when I say this line, it's a typical thing, but what is something what's the first thing that pops in your head when I say this? What is something that you wish you knew then that you know now?
That I'm very special and I'm the prize
Uh,
because I'm a very, very unique human being. Very. I don't care what people think. I dress the way I want to dress. I treat every single person that I come in contact with the same way. Every person. I don't care if you're fat, ugly, skinny, in a wheelchair, out of a wheelchair, autistic. I treat everyone with real love. And I didn't notice that until people started telling me some years ago. And I know that I'm a very different person and I have to start representing myself like that. And that's really the pivotal point of my life is I really learned to represent me.
I think you treat well, in my experience, I think that a lot of people like interacting with you because they walk away thinking you're like a friend. And I think it's genuine,
Mm,
right? Like we do have a lot of experience where we've talked, but haven't talked in a long time. But
right.
then when we met up, it was sitting down with you like nothing had changed. You know what I mean?
Right. We
Like
didn't
it
skip a
had been
beat.
just last week.
Yeah.
You
We
know?
don't skip a beat. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's real impressive. And I think that I feel that way. So I was excited and reach out to you. But I gotta assume a lot of people that you interact with feel that
They
way.
tell me that. Even my son told me that. He said, Dad, because we have these conversations. And my son said, Dad, the crazy thing about us is I don't care how long I go without seeing you. It's like we never not see each other when we're back together again. And I'm like, wow. So it's like this consistency of the same story of people telling me this, even the person that's connected to me. So it's real. Like it's really real. I don't know how I have that ability. I don't know what that's about. Um, but now I'm having the opportunity to work with kids in the community, and I think that that's the most incredible thing. So um, I think that's my purpose.
Well, I think people project it like we were talking about in my experience in working with a lot of clients and a lot of people who don't feel as well about themselves and as good and are seeking help, that they always go into that people know that story about them. Like and I'll remind them they have no idea what your story is. Like
Right,
you're telling them, you're wearing it in your body language,
right,
you're
right.
communicating in the words you
Mhm.
choose. Then they start building this story, and then you get that feedback from them that reaffirms. So, I would assume that's what's happening a lot with you is that you're projecting out this story, this genuineness, this kindness, and listening and interacting with people on that level. So then when they come back to you, you're being genuine and kind, and it's not as common, right? People
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
like you said, you were falling into that trap a little bit of trying to be Rev and trying to be these personas, and people
Right,
put out a
right,
persona.
right.
But I guess to summarize my thoughts is that I believe that we take our environment and we make it tell our story. We tell ourselves, okay, this is the story because this is what the environment's
Right.
saying. But in reverse, it's our environment is a mirror of what we're feeling inside and how we're acting with it.
Hmm.
So it's reinforcing our feelings.
Hmm.
It's this cycle, and it's crazy to hear you. It's not crazy. It's good to hear you state that you have that understanding or seeing it because that's what I believe a lot of our life is that we're carrying this message, this persona, who we're supposed to be to the world. The world is interpreting our body language, our communication styles, the things that we do, and then reflecting it back to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And now with social media, it's even it's a sad world because now you have a fictitious world that you have to put this persona on for, and it's very difficult for me with what I do. And people say you'll be so much more successful, Rev, if people can see what you do. And I'm like, well, that's too much effort. It's too much effort for me to try to put everything on video.
Yeah.
Everything. The people that work with me, they work with me because I'm not that type of individual. They work with me because I treat them like a real human. It doesn't matter if they're the Michael Jordans of the world, you know, but I treat them real, you know. So in the social media world, it's sad because you have so many people trying to leverage their life off of something that they can't really obtain, right? Like that's almost like trying to believe in God but don't have a relationship with him. Like think about those two disconnections. It's the
Yeah.
same thing with social media.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of what we, well, first of all, the amount of time that gets spent into putting into shooting video and editing and doing that kind of stuff is significant. So I can understand not putting everything on video. But beyond that, I think the reason why I got interested in this and doing this format is I've always spoke in front of groups, and I was pretty comfortable with that. And I don't mind having cameras in my face. I talk about when I was a kid, they were doing like a air show documentary and threw a camera in my face. And the guy had me stay there. He's like, no, you stick around. He's like, you're the first person to put two sentences together all day. So I've always kind of been drawn to that. But then I didn't really like social media because I felt it was so, like I said, so fake. They're putting these glorified personas,
Right, right.
and it's not being real, and it's not being vulnerable. And the thing that I wanted to do with conversations that I have is at least try to get people, or at least try to be in an environment where you're vulnerable, right? So talk a little bit about like learning to be vulnerable and how by being vulnerable, at least this is me kind of feeding you some stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it to
Mm-hmm.
where you get stronger, you become a better person,
Mm-hmm.
you become more productive because you're actually getting into conversations that you need to have.
Well, it's energy exchange. You know, the universe is out there for a reason. We keep trying to figure out why it's out there, but all that's out there is energy. It's just matter and energy. And I think that humans, we're we're designed for energy. We're just well, not designed. We're designed for emotion. And I think that being able to be vulnerable with someone, it like sparks. It gives you that spark of energy that you need to understand that you are one. That's all we are. We're one, you know? And being able to be vulnerable with someone is like the biggest, it's like the biggest piece to life, I feel, you know, because once you can tell someone something that you can trust them with, that they're not going to judge you on, like what better feeling is that? That's better than love, right? If I can tell someone something and I know they're going to reciprocate or it's going to allow them to open, like I don't love them, but seeing that they can be vulnerable with me, that gives me a sense of purpose. It makes
Mm-hmm.
me feel like incredible, right? It makes me want to continue to be vulnerable with people so that I can continue to reach those individuals that are willing to be vulnerable because not everyone is going to be willing to, right?
Yeah.
But be doing that enough, it's going to create a community like what you're doing, being able to sit down with people and talk to them and crack those barriers to allow them to be vulnerable in front of this camera and in front of people that don't even know them, that can maybe open something in their brain or in their life to say, you know what, I want to take time for myself now to really try to work on myself and talk to some people that I can trust and that can be vulnerable with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's just my description of it, I guess.
I think with vulnerable, it has a negative connotation, especially amongst men, right?
Yeah.
It'd be nice if it got to the point where it was just a connotation or just a description of a state of mind, like more so sharing, you know. And so it'd be nice if we got to that point because like you said, so much growth happens. So much growth. And I think for me, the reason why it was so important is because with all the people I worked with, a lot of them didn't identify with me because I look significantly different than them, because I spent a lot of time working with people who are trying to lose weight and do things like that.
Mm,
And so they would often say to me, well, you don't understand because you're thin, this, that, or the other. Right. And my retort was, and it was like just out of instinct, where I said, you know, this I understand that, but I spent my whole life thin, and I wanted to be this type of person.
right,
And so
right,
I used these ideals to try and achieve this thing. So I went through the same journey you're going through, but I was just on the other side of it.
right.
And your struggles that you have with, as far as like not consuming or getting better habits or actually getting physically fit and exercise, I was on the other end, where it was like I needed to eat more and I needed to stop doing
Hmm.
as much and I needed to, or make these adjustments. And the bigger thing was like how it made us feel, how it made us feel insecure, how it made us feel about ourselves, our self-value, our self-worth, and associating so much to that.
Mm,
And actually, for me, in that journey, it wasn't until I got to the point where I achieved the goal that I wanted that I realized all that stuff that I was focusing on aesthetically still didn't get me there.
mm.
And it was about me being okay with being me. It was about me being okay with these things. It was about me pursuing the things that made me happy.
Right, right.
And so when I started to tell those stories to clients and people, then I started to get more from them. And I started to really believe, not only because initially I was like making a sales pitch, right? I was making a sales pitch to you, trying to get you to open up. But then as we're going through the process, I'm saying these things I had never said out loud to myself or anyone else before, because I'm trying to make the sales pitch on why you need to believe in me, why you
Hmm.
need to let me work with you.
Hmm.
And then going through that, I was like, man, this is why I'm messed up. This is why I have this issue. This
Hmm.
is why I don't do this. This is why I'm stuck with this. So by helping others, it helped me so much. So with you, you're doing so much that works with others and helps others. What kind of feedback system has that made for you?
Well, it just helped me understand why I went through the hell I went through in life. I truly feel like my life has been designed to be like this prophet for people. Because I mean, man, it's been hell, like for real. Like it has not been an easy life for me, and I'm a very good human being, and I had to still go through hell. So to see these relationships that I've created, to be in a community that is not designed for me, and to create the lifestyle that I've created in this community, it truly shows me that no matter what I go through, as long as I continue to be who I am, I can I can be good with that. Like I can be, that's my happiness. Because I'm not worried about nothing. I'm not trying to cheat anybody. I'm not trying to do anybody wrong. And that's a very peaceful life.
Hmm.
All I have to do is continue to work on myself. And everything I put out is going to come back to me. It's going to boomerang. It might not boomerang in 10 years, 15 years, but at some point it will. So if I continually just kind of focus on that, then I'll be all right. So that's what makes me like that.
Um, so let's say we've kind of put our time in. We wanted to go through this and sit down and really kind of let this first one just explore kind of who
Mm-hmm.
we are
Mm-hmm.
and what our flow is and stuff like that. So we've gone over relationships, we've gone over parenting, we've gone over a little bit about obviously your background and experience, connecting with people. We've gotten some stuff on energy and being present, right? And what that means. What are some of the big things, like if your past self is watching this right now?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the takeaways you want them to focus on a conversation like this?
Get to know yourself. Like I think that's the most important thing because that is going to direct your life in a way that you can't even imagine. It's going to help you have the right people around you. It's going to help you be more successful. It's going to help you really stand up for yourself. So if you don't know yourself, you can't fight for yourself. If you can't fight for yourself, why fight for anybody else, right? Why fight for a love that doesn't want you? If you know you love yourself, then you know you don't need to fight for love. Love is gonna find you, right? So my biggest thing, get to know yourself for real. Like for real, get to know yourself. Like if you don't understand how to get to know yourself, go to therapy. It's not a bad thing. It's
Mm.
actually smart. You're a genius if you decide to go to therapy. Go talk to someone who doesn't know who you are, who can help you decipher the things that you're going through.
And use it.
Yeah, and use
I
it.
see people go to therapy and they use it as an excuse to like why they act a certain way instead of
Right,
acting on the
right,
information
yeah,
they get.
yeah, yeah. But no, I mean, I will say it over and over again. That's the only thing that I don't have no other big like, oh, you need to do this. Like, just get to know yourself because today in today's day and time, it doesn't allow you. You live in this world of avatar. You're being someone for someone else. You're not being someone for you. So just fight for you. Continue to fight for you. Because if you fight for yourself, I promise everything will be all right.
Cool. Well, look for more content from us. We're just again we're at this kind of initial level, this initial phase. Where we're really trying to get our voice out there, but more so just to help, and then for us to kind of figure out too what kind of content, what kind of information is going to help grow the future leaders and the future Erics and the future Revice Jordans out there into entrepreneurs or better fathers, better leaders, and so yeah, so we appreciate your time today. Please follow, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'd appreciate it. Share with anyone you think that this message or some of Rev's story can help with, and we'll see you next time.